and spotlight you, Tim. Ready when you are.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. Some familiar faces and some new faces. Of course, these days, all we get is the faces, at least on this kind of engagement. So I'm here to talk to you about Zen practice. I don't really, know where everybody is with their practice, and so maybe I'll keep this talk short and leave some time for questions, which might be more fruitful. But I do like to encourage people to see their practice in light of the world that we live in. It seems the world these days wants to dehumanize us in many ways, all the different ways that we are, presented with information and marketed to. People in the marketing world like to turn us into numbers, and we start doing that to each other as well as a result of being in this environment of appears to be a kind of dehumanization of each other. I was just driving on the freeway, which I'm sure many of you do frequently as well. And the tone on the freeway from Seattle to Tacoma on a Saturday afternoon is a little different than it is, on a Tuesday or a Sunday morning. Saturday afternoon seems to be a kind of free-for-all. Not sure why. I have my guesses. But the freeway is kind of an interesting analogy or metaphor for our human life, because everybody's coming and going and moving in and out, and we tend to be quite self-centered and protected by a big box, and we don't really see the humanity of the folks that are in the other vehicles. We either ignore them if they're complying with what we think they should be doing, or we get angry at them and shake our fists if they cut us off or do crazy behaviors. So that comes to mind for me that we do that. We're all responsible for that. And Zen practice is, if it's about anything, it's about becoming more intimate with and more accepting of our humanity. I don't think Zen practice is about fixing us or making us better or about solving our problems, although all of those things can occur over the long arc of practicing. If we investigate what we are and how we function in the world, we might gain some wisdom into our behaviors and make choices that are more helpful and less damaging. But ultimately, I think what practicing does is it allows us to see what we are, if we're willing to look, if we're willing to investigate that. And that doesn't mean it's going to make us more wonderful or better or more clear or more anything. In fact, it's possible that your Zen practice will make you less of something. For instance, you might be less inclined to want to be something other than you are. And ultimately, that's really what we can do. We can practice in order to become more intimate with our actual humanity, our actual authentic self, and see how that can be reflected in those people who we come in contact with, those situations that we come in contact with. Zen teaching is full of, good ideas. For instance, how may I help you? And that's a good idea, to ask someone how you might be helpful to them. But it's only a good idea until it becomes something that we can actually avail ourselves to and become the embodiment of, and actually be willing to see the humanity of whoever's in front of us and respond to them in some way that might be helpful. So as a good idea, it's nice, but if you attach to that particular teaching and you don't delve into the intimacy of it, it's just another good idea. And even good ideas turn into something other than anything helpful if we attach to them. So ultimately, Zen practice, whether you've been practicing for 20 minutes or you've been practicing, for your whole adult life or somewhere in between, ultimately, the long arc of practice is resting in our authentic self, becoming increasingly intimate with what we are, letting go of many things, which include our ideas about what we are and our ideas about what someone else might be, or how we want things to be. It's possible with Zen practice to become more accepting of yourself and others. And I think that's really the ground upon which we can develop in our practice. Becoming a Zen student doesn't mean wanting the world to be different so it matches up with our Zen idea. It doesn't mean wanting everybody else to be different because we want them to match up with our Zen idea. Most important is to become accepting, willing to accept ourselves and the situations that we find ourselves in, the people that we find ourselves together with. And all of the formal aspects of Zen practice, whether they're bowing or chanting or sitting or doing together action with other people or meeting with the teacher and wrestling with a kongan, all of those things point to something which is much more intimate than any of those things are on the surface. All of those activities point to an intimacy with our natural self, our true nature. And as easy as that is to say, it can be quite a slippery slope because human beings are very clever. If I'm any example of one, I know it to be true, that human beings are very clever. And we trick ourselves and we fool ourselves and we tell ourselves stories of self-deprecation and self-aggrandizement and everything else in between. So a sincere, vigilant Zen practice is something that unfolds over the long arc. We have ups and downs. We have good retreats and bad retreats and all those things that we do. Oh, good sitting. I had a great sitting today. We make all these judgments about everything. But the truth is the way to deepen your appreciation for Zen practice and perhaps benefit yourself and the rest of the world by endeavoring into Zen practice is to realize that it's the long arc. Stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. Come hell or high water, or any other events along the way, and just stick with it. And don't believe the nonsense talk that you have in your head or that other people have coming out of their mouths. Stick with it. Find out what it is to be you in this body, in this life, in this world. So that's my encouragement to everybody, whether you've been practicing, again, for a very short time, or as some people I can see have been practicing for a very, very long time in the scope of a human being's life. It doesn't really matter. We can't ever forget that moment to moment to moment, our job is to wake up and be an authentic person. So with that, I would invite you to give that a try and feel free to ask any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Tim. that wonderful talk.